Thank you, Raylyn. Thank you. And good morning, everyone. I think it's really reassuring in these days to come together like this, hopefully for support and inspiration of each other. So even if it's a virtual reality, it's special. So let's start, as we always do, with the refuges. And let me just say one thing about that. They're the outer refuges in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. But I like to remember, so we don't go on to automatic pilot, that there are inner refuges and that we are taking refuge in our own and infinite potential, really, to awaken. And that we're also taking refuge in the sacred teachings, the Dharma, and also in the sacredness of our coming together. And we're the Sangha. So with that, let's see the slide and chant the refuges. Sangje chodang jokti jok nam la changchu bardu dakni japsu chi daji zinsok ji pe sanam ji throla penchir sangje deju parsho. In Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, we go for refuge until enlightened. By the power of generosity and the other perfections, may we realize Buddhahood for the benefit of all. So let us move into practice. And I'm going to start with 3 sounds of the Tibetan gong. And I'll give some guidance in the beginning and then less as we go along, and then we'll end with 1 sound of the gong. So let the gong help you to make the transition from being turned outward to being turned inward for our time of meditation. So perhaps beginning by taking 3 or 4 long, deep, deeply satisfying breaths to help bring awareness into the body. And since our mind tends to keep arising with thought after thought, see if you can let it drop with your awareness into the body. The body is the first foundation of mindfulness, and it's our anchor, along with the breath, into the present moment. Just be aware of sitting, whether you're in a chair or on a cushion, feeling the weight of the body, feeling the touch points where you make contact with the chair or the cushion. It's letting go of preoccupations, letting go of tension in the body, letting go and trusting this present moment. Very aware of any sensations that you're experiencing, especially perhaps focusing on your hands. You can feel the energy in the hands, subtle, alive. And dropping even deeper into awareness of the body. And the breath always in the background. But if you're distracted, bring it into the foreground and follow each in-breath, each out-breath, feeling how the breath moves in the body. The breath is sacred. It's our life. It's also our anchor to the present moment. And whatever may be arising, whether it's in your body, feelings, or thoughts, bring awareness to it. Be a witness of it. No judgment, no comparing mind, just the presence of awareness. And remember, this is a process of discovery. What is arising? Can you follow the rising of a thought? It's dwelling for a moment and then dissolving. And whatever challenges you may be dealing with, remember the heart center. Remember to be aware of the heart center and bring compassion to yourself, and then let that radiate to all others. For the last few minutes, see if you can drop deeper, as though dropping beneath the waves of thought that arise in the mind, and become aware once more of your heart center. Peaceful heart. Peaceful heart. So again, take a couple of deep breaths to bring yourself back to wherever you are. And maybe before I start sharing some reflections, um, let's just take a couple of minutes to stand and stretch and breathe and be grateful to what our bodies can do, and do whatever you need to do just for a couple of minutes. And just remember how wonderful that whatever we do, however we move, just how the breath is what is there, that subtle refuge. And perhaps at some point bending over or letting your head be a little bit below your upper body. And in your own time, come back to your seat. I just want to say once more how much I appreciate being able to come together and feel our Sangha around us. And somehow, in these times of so much turmoil, feeling the refuge of each other is really a gift. So I wanted to say that again. So, very briefly, I'll be sharing some thoughts with you about the topic, and then we'll have breakout groups. And that's very precious too, because uh, just to hear each other and to be in contemplation, if you will, together. And then we'll come back together into the full group and share whatever came up. So let me just tell you that this topic for today, finding or cultivating courage and compassion in these tumultuous times, um, it's what's up for me. And so I thought it might be up for you too, because, here we are in this situation together in a time of tremendous upheaval and change, and watching really how the old order is being destroyed, besides all that's going on in the world. So I'm going to use the words of the wise ones as kind of a springboard to reflect on this subject with you. And I want to start with Thomas Merton. I'm sure many of you know of him. He was a mystic, a Trappist monk, an author, an extremely brilliant man who, by the way, in his late life went to the East, and before his untimely death, he was planning to return to study with one of the most eminent Dzogchen masters in Tibet. Just interesting, this Buddhist Christian dialogue, if you will, that he was so intrigued by. So he was a giant figure in the Christian tradition. And here are his words. True prayer or meditation begins in the moments when all the doors are closed and our hearts have turned to stone. Just again, true meditation begins in the moments when all the doors are closed and our hearts have turned to stone. That sounds like a heavy place to start, but it's an acknowledgement of how we may all be experiencing numbness or paralysis or powerlessness or overwhelm, any one of those adjectives or whatever. I think we know what he's talking about. I think we can feel into that. And I was struck when I saw the Boston Globe on Friday, because this is graduation time. And this was to see these words on the front page of the paper was really quite striking to me, because at MIT, one of the speakers referred to the pervasiveness of fear and dread. Those two words, fear and dread. And there it was, it feels like almost a pandemic of a new form. And so just think of it. Think of all those people who perhaps feel it even more so, like the migrants, the immigrants, people of color, trans people or any marginalized people, marginalized by a portion of our society, so much fear, so much uncertainty. So we don't need to. We are so aware of the challenges of this time that we may feel sometimes as though our hearts are closed down, turned to stone, as he said. And so in our darkest moments, I think we must remember our refuges. We just must. And I'll come back to that subject in a moment. But I want to share the words of another wise one. I'm sure maybe some of you know of John O'Donoghue, who was an Irish mystic and a priest, an author. And he, as you'll hear in a minute, invites us to go toward these difficult uh, responses that we're having instead of away from it. In other words, towards our difficult feelings, not running from them. And so what he says, and I find this a very arresting statement, going into, not away from, those scary places is the very courageous act that enables my humanity, sensitivity, my authenticity, my own exciting, unpredictable wildness to be. That's a little hard to follow. Let me say it again. Going into, not away from, those scary places is the very courageous act that enables my humanity, sensitivity, my authenticity, my own exciting, unpredictable wildness to be. See, that's the courageous act, he says. There's that word courage that awakens that part of him. Um, I love it that he calls his unpredictable wildness. I mean, I wonder, do you sometimes feel, as I do, almost wild with intensity? Boy, if these ever were times for practice, this is it. So, but he's saying that this wildness is the very thing that may propel us into action, to resist, uh, or perhaps to turn within, to really seek refuge in our practice. And he's talking about I equate wildness with outrage, also the freedom to find our own way, whatever it's going to be. So, with those two inspiring bits of wisdom, let's just take a moment to think about our refuges. And, let me ask you, how is your practice? Are you nurturing it? Are you setting aside time for it? Are you recommitting to it? And you see, I'm reminded of that phrase, anytime, anywhere, or maybe it's the other way around, anywhere, anytime. And this is referring to the view. And the view is a very central concept in these teachings, in the Tibetan teachings especially, but in all of the Buddhist traditions. It's like the lens through which we see our world and through which we're choosing to act, if you will. And so another way of saying this is either here or nowhere. This is where we practice here or we lose it, and that's nowhere. So here are these phrases, anywhere, anytime. It's the remembrance to be aware. It's the remembrance to come into the here and the now. And this involves intention. And again, intention is another really sacred word in our tradition because it precedes all of our actions. So, what are our intentions? It's very powerful. And so, we have so often heard can we bring mindfulness to all of our actions? Mindful toward the heart and the mind in meditation. Remembering intention is so powerful. Really living in the here and the now. It takes me back. Do you remember way back in the early 70s, was it? When Ram Dass, who was so dear to many of us, brought out Be Here Now. Do you remember? That was very revolutionary back then. And uh, that book had a tremendous impact. Anyways, it certainly did on my life. So along these same lines, I want to share some very inspiring words to me that bring together a lot. And a fellow Dharma teacher named Rodney Smith, he's in the Vipassana tradition, the insight meditation tradition. He used to be at IMS, Insight Meditation in Barrie, and then he moved to Seattle and he started the Seattle Insight Meditation Center. And I used to visit him there because my daughter lived in Seattle then. And he's a very thoughtful teacher and he's written a number of books. And I want to quote something from his book called Touching the Infinite. I think I may have to read this one twice. This is so beautiful. Let us kneel and pay homage to the only place we could ever be, here and now. Here is as near to the sacred as we will ever find. It is the sacred, this place that cradles us, where we are fully embraced by the earth, held by the stars, and aligned with the universe. The laws of the universe run through this very body at this moment. The body's composition is literally the stuff of stars, born from exploding supernovas. Everything begins from the body's present location. So I'm not going to reread the whole quote, but I'm just going to pull a few phrases from it and invite you, wherever you are right now, where you're sitting, this place, he's saying, kneel and pay homage to this place, the only place we could ever be, here and now. And it's as near to the sacred as we will ever find. And then he says, this place cradles us. That's so beautiful. This place where you are sitting is holding you. It's cradling you. And then he's connecting that to the universe, that we are not separate from the universe, from the cosmos. We're not separate from the stars. In fact, when that supernova happened, the Big Bang, part of that is still in the marrow of our bones. It's so amazing to think about. But you see, he's saying everything begins here, where we are in this moment. So that reminds me of that phrase, anywhere, anytime. But, it's a big but. We're often spun away into reactivity, into distraction, into our powerful feelings, into little busyness, as I call it, little busyness. Do you know that one? Where you find yourself doing this and that, I think almost a form of distraction. These are all aspects of our humanness, you know. So it's just remembering we can always come home again to that sacred place, that sacred place. So here, just remember, we don't need to be reminded, but I think we do, that the very core of our practice, the very heart of our practice, is this very subtle but powerful gift of our own awareness. It's so subtle. And yet, as I'm fond of saying, here's a kind of a thought-provoking comparison. In the same way that fish live in water and birds live in the air, the element that we live in, if you will, element, is awareness. It's there all the time. It's so present. We forget. But that's what awareness is. That's the realm in which we live all the time. And I just love comparing us to the fish and the birds. You can see I do whatever I can to stay aligned with the wisdom of the teachings. So let me just share with you some wonderful words from another Buddhist teacher. Some of you may have done retreats with him, Adam Tupton. In fact, he will be in the Boston area in late August, I think. Written a lot of really wonderful books. And one of them is called The Citadel of Awareness. The Citadel of Awareness. And he calls this practice of awareness our inner fortress. And these words are really interesting, and they're very related to what we're focusing on today, which is finding courage and compassion in the midst of these unbelievable times, because we need an inner fortress. And in fact, in the classical teachings, this word fortress appears quite often. In other words, the early practitioners saw that that's what our practice could be for us. So we need to have something that is strong, that is enduring, that is sturdy, something that we can rely on. So let me see if I can find his quote here. Well, it's really interesting because the quote seems to have gone off on a mind of its own. But anyways, let me just say that the paradox here is that something as subtle as our awareness is also that powerful. And he actually speaks about three levels of awareness. And this is really interesting. Three levels or three realms, if you will, of awareness. And the first, the outer and inner and secret. So the outer one is what we access through our breath, through sensations and so forth in the body. The inner level or the inner realm of awareness is our awareness towards thoughts and feelings. That's more of the subtle dimension. But then there's the inner or secret, innermost or secret realm. And this is simply pure awareness without an object, non-dual awareness. And it's called our true nature. That's the sort of term. It's the essence of who we are. It's also called rigpa, Sanskrit word for pure awareness. So sorry, I don't have his exact words, but in any case, I hope you've gotten the sense of what he's teaching here. So I want to turn to an example of extraordinary courage as a kind of source of inspiration for us. And I can't tell you how often I have turned to this woman, Indian woman, named Dipa Ma. Dipa is spelled D-I-P-A, and Ma means mother, Dipa, mother. And she's an Indian woman of the 20th century who became a great master, fully enlightened, fully enlightened. And I want to tell her story. I've read two books about her, and I know what a formative influence she's had on Western Buddhism because she was a teacher to some of those leading teachers in the Vipassana tradition, people you may have heard of, like Jack Kornfield, Joseph Goldstein, um, Sharon Salzberg. They all spent time with her. So let me tell you about Deepa Ma and try to take this in. First of all, she was physically tiny. She was about 5 feet 10, very small. And what was interesting was that she, in the space of 10 years, in her 40s, or maybe it was her late 30s, she lost two of her infant children. Both of her parents died. She developed both heart disease and typhoid, and her own health just plummeted. She was actually, and then her husband died. So much loss, so much loss. So she was absolutely devastated, and she herself was dying. She was dying. And she said to herself, and these were her words, "What can I take with me when I die?" This is a question we might all ask. What can I take with me when I die? Let me go to the meditation center. Maybe there I can find something that I can take with me when I die. And so she actually ended up crawling up the steps of whatever that center was. I think I'm not sure whether we're in India or it doesn't matter where we are. We're in Asia. But here's this woman in a desperate situation, and she goes, she's in her early 50s. Well, she turned out to be an extraordinary practitioner. The teachers that she had, one was Munindra. You might not have heard of these, but they were famous in the Vipassana tradition. The other was Mahasi Sayadaw. And at the age of 53, now listen, after only 6 days of practice, she attained the first level of enlightenment. It's just astonishing. 6 days. She must have been so karmically ready. And I should mention that in that tradition, in the Theravada tradition, they recognize 4 stages of enlightenment, and she attained the first one. And then after that, the remaining 3 until she was a fully enlightened master. And yet, what's so inspiring is that Deepa Ma was a householder. She was a mother. She was a wife and then a widow. She lived in a little house, but then people came flocking to be near her because she was such an inspiration. And one of the things that she taught, and I think we ought to take this one in too, is that enlightenment is possible anywhere, anytime, in any environment. And here she was, a householder, and she became a great master. This was also remarkable at that time because almost all the teachers were men. And here she was, this diminutive Indian woman. So just a couple of things that she said. Oh, she was called the patron saint of householders. The patron saint of householders. So just a couple of more things about her. She said, the whole path of mindfulness is this. Whatever you are doing, be aware of it. That's simple. She said, you cannot separate meditation from life. And she pushed her students to the edge. Are you ready to go to your edge? Because that's what she did if you went to study with her. And she said, practice without regard for body or life and with all the love in your heart. I love that. Practice with all the love in your heart. And that reminds us about the Bodhisattva ideal and practicing that. So, since I want to leave a little more time to finish some of my thinking here, but let me just say that Joseph Goldstein, who is a friend too, He said that her greatest gift was showing me what was possible and then living it. She gave the sense that with courage of the heart, there's the word again, courage of the heart and right effort, anything is possible. And well, some of you may know who Jock Cornfield is. So I just want to say that in a group interview, he asked her, Deepa Ma, what is in your mind? What is in your mind? And apparently she smiled and closed her eyes, and she quietly answered, in my mind, there are three things: concentration, loving kindness, and peace. And Jack said, is that all? And she said, yes, that is all. And he said, how marvelous. It's like concentration, so beautiful. Loving kindness and peace. We could just put those three words on a note card and put them beside our meditation seat to remind ourselves. So let me just take a moment here to invite you, having heard about the courage and determination of this woman, just for a few moments, close your eyes and put your hand over your heart center and just invite the word courage. Courage. See if you can feel the word in your body with your breath, maybe taking deeper breaths, breathing in courage, maybe breathing out peace. And see, does any image for courage arise for you? So whatever is arising, let it strengthen, especially the word. And know that you can return to this whenever you need it. You can simply put your hand over your heart, because the word courage comes from the French word cœur, the heart. So you can bring your attention back now. So just to review very briefly, we've been looking at examples of courage for inspiration, and especially the role of compassion at these times, especially now. And so I want to come to another teacher who's been very inspiring to me, Mingyur Rinpoche. Some of you may have read that wonderful book he wrote called In Love with the World. First of all, he's Tibetan, lives in Nepal, and he's a master in the Kagyu and the Nyingma traditions, and he teaches worldwide. And if you read that book, it's an astonishing story, because just very briefly, he had a lifelong longing to go on what he called a wandering retreat. And because he was the head of a lineage and he had many hundreds of students all around the world, he had to do this, shall we say, in secret. And so he slipped out of his monastery in the middle of the night and he left a note. He didn't tell anybody ahead of time. He left a note and he said he was leaving on wandering retreat for 3 years. Can you imagine? And then in this book, he tells the story of that retreat and how he almost died, how he went from being this eminent teacher with all that that had around him to being a wandering monk with nothing, nothing except maybe a backpack. Anyway, it's a very inspiring book. So he says, compassion is the spontaneous wisdom of the heart. It's always with us. It always has been and always will be. And when it arises in us, we've simply learned to see how strong and safe we really are. Excuse me. Listen once again. Compassion is the spontaneous wisdom of the heart. To me, those are beautiful words. The idea that this is spontaneous, that we know that in our true nature, that our true nature is compassionate and loving. And we just need to peel away the layers that come between us and that pure compassion. It's always with us, he says. It always has been and always will be. And when it arises in us, we've simply learned how strong and safe we really are. You see, there it is again, this idea that compassion too is a kind of inner fortress, a kind of something we can rely on. I need to rely on water right now. Anyway, when it arises in us, we've simply learned to see how strong and safe we really are. You see, if we put these various words together, courage, compassion, inner fortress, citadel of awareness, that's where we can turn. That's where we can turn. So we discover it, praise be, through meditation. You know, when we meditate, we start to feel our interconnection with others, with everybody, with the world. And sometimes people don't understand, those of us who go off on long retreats. They think that perhaps that's running away from the world, but anyone who's done retreat knows that we feel more connected than ever, and our interconnection with everybody. So we need compassion in these tumultuous days. We need compassion towards the suffering of others. You know, it's so worldwide. The suffering of migrants, of immigrants, of the homeless, of the hungry, of people in war zones. It's like wherever we look, there it is, there it is. But can we let it, instead of having it shut us down and turn our hearts to stone, as Merton said, can we let it bring us into our hearts, open our hearts and feel that, to feel that? And above all, can we feel compassion for ourselves? So the challenge is to take our fear, our dread, our outrage, all those words, our grief, and turn it into compassion. And in just having mentioned the word grief, I'm reminded of the work, which I'm sure some of you are aware of Joanna Macy. who did workshops all around the world, and she called them um, mm, grief, I think grief and empowerment. That may not quite be right, but her thesis was we have to go toward those feelings. That's the same theme that we heard in that earlier quote from O'Donoghue. We have to go towards those feelings and allow them fully to manifest. We need to let that part of our humanness be felt. And only then, that's her thesis, will we have the freedom really to move into action and to be empowered and then act. And so that work is that's in our inner work. It's really very important. So this is a very subtle process of transformation where we take those strong feelings and see if we can transform them into compassion. And I'm reminded of the words of John Kabat-Zinn, another colleague and friend, who calls this transformation. It's in a moment. It's just in a tiny moment. He calls it a subtle maneuver of the heart, a subtle maneuver of the heart. That's brilliant. And it can happen in just a moment. It's our inner work. It's our calling. That's our practice. That when powerful feelings arise, we turn within, we breathe into the heart center, we witness, and then we watch and invite a subtle transformation towards compassion, compassion to the world and to ourselves. So before I end, which I'm about to do, I just hope maybe a couple of seeds have been planted. I think all these words, but if there's just a couple of seeds that stay with you, that's precious. That's how we touch each other. So I want to come back to our friend John O'Donoghue. He wrote a book called Benedictus, the Book of Blessings. And this is so beautiful. Very simple, 5 lines. Try to feel this. Maybe close your eyes. May I live this day compassionate of heart, clear with word, gracious in awareness, courageous in thought, generous in love. So again, it's an invitation to how you live this day. Compassionate of heart, clear with word, gracious in awareness, courageous in thought, generous in love. So thank you all for your attention. And now we're just going to take a minute because Ray Lynn is going to help us to go into practice groups. And I want to just give you a focus for the groups. Let me just say these groups can be so precious. They are. They're a chance for you to take whatever you've heard, whatever is up for you in your life, and reflect on it with others. So here's the focus. And Raylin, maybe you can put this into the chat. What are you finding challenging these days? And how might your practice help with it? Very simple. It's what is challenging and how might your practice help with it? What are you what are you finding challenging these days and how might your practice help with it? So a few guidelines will be in groups of 3 and I suggest that one person speaks at a time. You each have 5 minutes, no cross talk, and know that whatever you share is held in confidentiality. And let's see, what else is there I should be remembering? I think those are the most important points. And then when we come back together, of course, start by introducing yourself. Somebody be a timer. Unless, Raylan, you put up the time, I don't know.
How long would you like them to
I
be?
think, yeah, I think somebody within the group to be the timer. And then when we come back together again, we'll share. And there's wisdom that we can share with each other, and also the challenges. It's really helpful to hear what other people are dealing with here. So enjoy your breakout group.
Olivia, how long total?
Sorry,
How long would you like the breakout groups to go for total?
do
How
what?
many minutes? How many minutes?
Oh, 15 overall,
15
5 minutes.
overall? Okay, so I'll do 15 overall, and everybody in your group, you all can keep track of time, how many each person.
Yeah, yeah.
So I will go ahead and open the rooms now.
It may be a little bit more than that, that they can have a little general talk at the end
Okay,
so that we come back together again. Let me see here. I'm trying to see my timing. Um, yeah, at 20 of.
okay,
Is everybody back?
I think so.
Thank you, everybody. A couple of details. First of all, I want to thank Raylan for putting various quotes and references into the chat. She was doing that as I went along, and I'm very impressed. She was typing them in. Thank you so much. The other thing is, dear ones, I want you to know I have a brand new computer as of 3 days ago, and I didn't know that the sound feature wasn't turned on, so you couldn't hear the gong. So whatever. Um, we have to keep adjusting. Anyways, let's come to how the breakout groups were. And it's really, I think it's wonderful to share whatever you can from your group. And so you can either, I think because we're a small group, you can just wave and Waylon will call on you, or I will, or you can hit the hands up reaction sign. So who wants to start? And we're a small group, so you can feel the safety of being together. Of course, I'm interested in hearing, about the challenges of dealing with these times, because it's really what motivated this talk. And yeah, Sarah. Hi there, Sarah. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Um, just briefly, there were two of us in our small group, and which was lovely because it gave us a chance to expand a little bit in our talk. Um, and I don't know, it's just I love the small groups, the breakout groups. So thank you for that. And I found it interesting that you mentioned the bell because not hearing the bell, it was such a practice for me to know the bell was ringing, but not being able to hear it, knowing exactly what had happened because I go through this all the time on my computer, which you have to turn on. But it was just like it was sort of holding, knowing the bell was ringing and not being able to hear it, and what is beyond sound. And it just brought me into this place of very, very spacious awareness, this vibrational silence that is not silence. And it was a place of sort of, I don't know, unknowing that was knowing. So that was a gift to me. So thank you for not turning on the sound. And the other, can't remember when you asked for what image, what might be coming up. I mean, I do know that what I'm struggling with these days, talked about this in the small group, is expanding my realm of compassion, and expanding it to the people who are now in power with whom I disagree and who are causing such grief and fear across the country and triggering lots of stuff in me from my past. And but it's somehow expanding again the compassion. I would start I would start with compassion for myself. I think you were saying when every time you said it was compassion at the end, but starting with compassion for myself and then expanding it outward to include those people who are creating not very good karma for themselves. Um, and the image that came to mind, I think you asked for an image about courage.
Yeah.
The image that came to mind was that of a lotus and starting in the muck.
Oh,
Starting
beautiful.
down there in the dirt and the mud and the disgust and the filth and the sewage, and somehow being able to rise up out
Mhm.
of that and to blossom
Mhm.
and extend that beauty into space, into ultimate awareness. So I don't know. I just felt that was helpful for me anyway.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Sarah. That's beautiful because I think images are often so powerful beyond words. Well, you know this because you're a poet, but it's um it's just that's a very beautiful image. And actually, Thich Nhat Hanh has a little book called No Mud, No Lotus. I think that's what it's called. So that's a gift to all of us, that image.
No, I hope
Thanks.
so.
Thanks
Uh,
so much. Also, to hear what you said about not hearing the gong really amuses me because I teach a class here, a course here in my elder community every week, and I often say to them, when they hear the gong, follow it from the form of the sound into the formless, because it's a metaphor for meditation. You know, we're in this dance between the form and the formless. So I love what you said about that.
well,
So,
I know. I mean, we were just in the formless. That's
right.
all it was. So thank you.
And I didn't even know.
I know. I could tell you didn't know.
Oh, you could? Okay. Well, thanks so much. Okay. So somebody else. You can see how rich it is when you speak. Yeah. I wonder if any of you ever spoke about practice and how that might come in here to help us at this time. Louise.
Please.
Oh, yes, we in our group we had four of us actually because we had Eric and Sue who were together. And we all really spoke about practice at some point, and that included meditation and morning rituals like watching the sunrise and going to the beach. There was a shared appreciation of being able to be in nature and find peace there and um, growth and newness, especially in the spring. And then there was a shared sense of service also, uh, providing for the people who really, really need it in our communities and finding ways to do that. So, yes, and I think all of us appreciated so much, Olivia, what you shared, all the quotes that you shared and the structure and the framework that you put the ideas, the concept, and actually the practice of courage and compassion and what that really looks like, because we all hear those words, but what do they really mean for us in our heart center and in our life and in our action in the world. So we were all deeply grateful for that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, I also think that's where the images come in. Do you know? I mean, when I was talking about Deepa Ma, I can see her, she's very alive for me, although she died probably 20 years ago. But anyway, yeah, I just think we're being here for each other. So I'm glad that even though you had four, you had time to share.
Hmm.
That's great. That's great. Yeah. So somebody else.
Olivia,
Yeah.
I just want to talk a little bit about Dana, the practice
Oh,
of generosity, and then I do have something I want to share, if that's okay.
please, please, of course.
So, as most of you are aware of, one of our practices is Dana, which is a practice of generosity. And you all are just being very generous and supporting this organization with your presence and being here. Um, and speaking of service and generosity, another way of offering generosity is offering a financial gift. And if that's something that you're able to offer and you feel really moved by the teaching of today, I'm going to put a link in the chat box. And again, only if you're able to and you feel inspired to. And that allows us to keep these kind of teachings and offerings going. So thank you again for all the ways that you offer your generous presence and your awareness. And Olivia, I wanted to just say thank you so much for speaking about Deepa Ma. And I want to continue to learn more about her. She sounds like there's just this resonance that I want to just explore and read more about her. And the invitation of with the image of courage, it was like, for me, it was kind of an image, but more of a felt sense of like a more like of a heartfulness or a heart opening. And I appreciate that because I think it's a different view of kind of what our culture projects courage to be. And it's something I want to continue to explore as of like, what does courage mean for me? So thank you, Olivia.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's a really deep question. What does courage mean to each of us? And it'll take on different shades of meaning depending on where we are in our lives. I'm fond of saying that the later years, especially the elder years, which I'm very much in, is the most heroic period of our lives. And because it takes such courage, this is very on a personal level, to deal with losses and the I've lost several friends in the last few weeks very suddenly, and it's like, whoa, that's where courage comes in. So it takes many, many forms. So I think that's something each of us can continue to explore. What does it mean to you? You know, and what kinds of situations call it forth? Um, Sometimes I feel it takes courage to watch the news. It's like, whoa. And be careful not to let that become so dominant that it toxifies you. That's not the right word, but you know what I mean. So um, I really appreciate you pointing to that, Raylene. Thank you. Maybe there's time for one more. Oh, yes. Oh, oh, I see two people's hands up. Renee.
Well, answer Forrest first, and then if there's time, I'll ask
Go,
you.
go ahead, Renee.
Well, I was curious about what do you think Deepa Ma meant when she said, "What can I take with me?"
Oh, well, she was dying. And
Right,
the
right.
reason I think this question is so important for all of us, because some of us are elders here, um, is what do we really have when the body's going and the outer world is going, we're dying? What can I take? She was dying. And so it was like a call of desperation. What can I take? And in fact, her husband had kept her from going to that meditation center, because this was a very, she was married at 12 because that was the way it was then. And I mean, to me, her story, and I have to also say, her karma. You don't do what she did just out of nowhere. She must have walked out of many lives of practice. But I think it's a very key question. What can we take with us? And
Mhm.
that's where the answer is our inner attainment, whatever it is. It's like our steadiness, our faith, our ability to turn to practice. That's what we can turn to. So I think that's what she meant. Yeah. Thank you so much for
Yeah, thank you.
highlighting that question. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, dear one. And Forrest, hello.
Hi. Well, I really appreciated that. And this is the first time I've ever been in a small group. There was just two of us, Nancy and myself. And so it was like a flow of conversation and a lot of resonance around the whole idea of courage in the heart and compassion here. And the idea of intention, like what is the intention we can carry? And for me, when I think of courage, it brings up having and wanting to deepen in trust. And that I feel like that's alive for me right now. How to deepen a sense of trust of belonging in being
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
Mm,
Thank you. I think that's probably something for all of us.
mm,
Yeah, because if we can trust, that kind of brings for me up those images of this of the inner fortress.
mm,
Trust and faith are very much part of that, as is courage. They all kind of work together. So I feel inspired. Thank you for what we've shared, and I think we probably should turn to the dedication. And I just want to say thank you to all of you for being here. And you might just think before we end of, I think our discussion has highlighted some important points, but what are you taking from today's meeting with each other? What stands out? I know I need to kind of make a point now of really focusing to remember. So I encourage all of us to do that. So let me just end um, my own part here and saying um, many blessings. And maybe you could put up the dedication, Raylin. Thank you. So may the pure, brilliant sun of bodhicitta dawn in each and every heart and mind, dispelling the darkness of suffering and confusion unstoppably until all are fully illumined and awakened.